Hello. So let's begin our exploration of the Gharanas of Hindustani Khayal music with a recording of Pandit Krishnarao Shankar Pandit. Krishnarao Shankar Pandit ji belonged to the Gwalior Gharana, which is known as the oldest among the Hindustani Gharanas, the mother Gharana, from which most other Gharanas emerged as offshoots. Panditji learned from one of the descendants of Ustad Haddu and Ustad Hassu Khan, the two brother musicians of the Gwalior Darbar, who are widely considered to be the creators of the modern Khayal as we know it today. Krishnarao Shankar Pandit is often referred to as a great representative of what old style Gwalior Gaiki was like. So we're going to use his music to try and get a glimpse of what the old Gwalior musicians were trying to do with their music. As you listen to Panditji sing this tarana in Rag Gaud Sarang, notice the freedom, the abandon and the exuberance with which he explores the possibilities of the rag. First, Panditji sings the sthai and the antara of the bandish, and then he launches into his flights of imagination and virtuosity. The musical tools that Panditji uses in his improvisation are called the ashtangas, the famous 8 angas, meaning parts or structures of Gwalior Gaiki. Now this was a specialty of the Gwalior musicians. They used improvisational devices, angas, such as meend, behlawa, gamak, boltan, taan and so on, and through each of them they took the rag that they were singing to different creative directions. So in the recording that we're about to listen to, we'll point out some of the angas that Panditji employs in this creative effort. Do also keep an eye on the tal cycle visual to see how skillfully Panditji, through his spontaneous deployment of these angas, catches the mukhra of the bandish and arrives at the sound. So let's listen now to Pandit Krishnarao Shankar Pandit sing Rag Gaud Sarang. Wasn't that delightful? This sense of exuberant spontaneity, this freedom to play with the melodies, rhythms, and syllables of the bandish is characteristic of the old Gwalior Khayal. Gwalior Gaiki seems to have everything in it. It accommodates all the tals, all tempos, a huge variety of bandishes, many adapted from old Dhrupad compositions, by the way. In fact, the Gwalior Gharana is famous for having perhaps the largest number of bandishes for every rag in its repertoire. And the Gaiki, the singing style through which they sing these bandishes and build upon them, the Gaiki tends to be astonishingly wide ranging and inclusive. As you heard in Krishnarao Shankar Panditji's recording, the old Gwalior singers made music by embracing the entire range of their voices, all of their octaves, all the time, and by using their Ashtanga tools, often in unplanned permutations, to explore every structure, sound, and expression that was possible in the musical situation that they found themselves in. Do go back and listen to this recording again and again to get a sense of what we're trying to say here. But as the exuberance, the freedom of the Gwalior Khayal grew, it also invited reactions from other visionary musicians who emphasized only some aspects of the Gwalior Khayal and de-emphasized others. And in the process, they created new musical idioms, each of which had a character, a flavor that was fresh, exciting, and beautiful in ways that were very different from the Gwalior Khayal. So let us look, for instance, at how the great Ustad Alladiya Khan, though Alladiya Khan Sahab was very inspired by the Gwalior Khayal, let's look at how he took it and turned it into something else entirely. He turned it into the austere, logically complex and difficult style of the Jaipur Gharana. Now, Ustad Alladiya Khan came from a family of Dhrupad singers in Rajasthan and found himself very inspired by the music of some of the greatest singers of the Gwalior Gharana. But he used that inspiration to single-handedly develop a style of Khayal singing that was so different from the music around him that his admirers started calling it the Alladiya Khan Gharana. Now, Khan Sahib himself decided to call it the Jaipur Gharana because one of his greatest inspirations was the Gwalior Gharana musician Ustad Mubarak Ali Khan, who at the time was court musician at the Jaipur Darbar, at the Jaipur court. And that was where Alladiya Khan Sahib lived for a time and constructed this new Gaiki for himself. So, what was so different about this new style? Well, unfortunately, no recordings of Khan Sahib's own singing exist for us to listen to. What we do have instead are recordings of his disciples. So, we're going to look at a recording of one of his most famous disciples, the legendary Surashri Kesarbai Kerkar. From Kesarbai's music, we can deduce Khan Sahib's intention to create an austere and complex Gaiki. Now, there are a number of things that set this Gaiki apart from the Gwalior style that we just heard. And we'd like you to look out for these as you listen to this recording that we're going to play for you in just a minute. Now, instead of exuberance and abandon, what you'll find here is a sense of remarkable control. In Kesarbai's unique use of her voice, as well as in the designs that voice creates, you'll hear this control, this sense of structure. As you'll hear in Kesarbai's recording, she is able to maintain the magnificent resonance of her voice through every phrase she sings. There is a continuity of sound in this Gaiki that contributes to the grand effect that it creates. You'll also notice how Kesarbai's singing creates clear, well-structured patterns. Clear and well-structured patterns that appear to be controlled and logical. And as the singing progresses, notice how these spontaneously created but orderly patterns gradually become more and more complex, so that they are eventually breathtaking in their intricacy. But they always have a well balanced clarity to them. They're never random, they're never haphazard or chaotic. That is not to say that being chaotic is a bad thing, but that was not the Jaipur aesthetic. Notice also how Kesarbai builds up tension in every avartan, in every rhythm cycle, and resolves it at the sum, only to do it again. Keep an eye on the Tal cycle visual to latch on to this. And this process of tension and resolution, and growing complexity, this is what continues cycle after cycle in this music. So let's listen now to Surashri Kesarbai Kerkar singing Rag Maru Bihag. magnificent, awe-inspiring and moving edifice Kesarbai creates, doesn't she? You might have noticed that most of her improvisation is in akar, using the vowel A. She uses her resonant, tuneful A vowel to create her patterns, and the words of the composition become a little less important to her music. This is another way in which the music of the Jaipur Gharana tries to move away from worldly human sentimentality and tries to achieve an austere, perfectly balanced, otherworldly but still moving music. So let's move on now to the Gharana that brings us back to earth and calls our attention to all the worldly fragrances and the wonders that populate it. The Agra Gharana. The Agra Gharana is also connected, by the way, to the old Gwalior singers through its teaching lineages. But the Agra Gharana as we know it today was given its identity in the early 20th century by the superstar of those times, Aftab-e-Mausiki Ustad Fayaz Khan. So, as you listen to Fayaz Khan Sahab sing, the first thing that grabs your attention is the charisma of his voice. Most male singers in those days sang in a very high pitch, an almost female pitch. This allowed them to sing loudly enough to reach their audiences without amplification. But Fayaz Khan Sahab was among the first vocalists to sing in a low, explicitly masculine pitch. But Fayaz Khan Sahab's voice grabs your attention for more than just its breadth and depth of sound. It does so also for its incredible expressive power. Unlike the other singers that we've heard so far, Fayaz Khan Sahab was a native speaker of Braj Bhasha, the language in which most Khayal bandishes are written. So as you listen to him sing this bandish in Rag Jaunpuri, Phulavanaki Gendana Maika Namar, notice as you listen how invested Fayaz Khan Sahab is in the text, in the words of the bandish, in the poetry of the bandish. Fayaz Khan Sahab and his followers were known for their word play. They brought the full force of human emotion and charisma to their enunciation of the text. But they also used the words of the bandish as a means to create delightful rhythm play. You'll notice how different this approach is to the Jaipur approach we just heard with Kesarbai, where the text takes a backseat and melodic structure is emphasized. But notice that this is also different from the Gwalior approach, where text is certainly used, but only incidentally, only because it's there. Agra Gharana singers were also known to be masters of rhythm. You'll notice how Fayaz Khan Sahab uses the words of the bandish almost as an instrumentalist might use his or her plectrum to create accents at tricky points in the rhythm cycle. They'll create accents at very tricky points in the rhythm cycle and masterfully resolve their rhythm statements on the sum. That's what Fayaz Khan Sahab does. But because of his investment in the poetry of the bandish, Fayaz Khan Sahab's rhythm work never sounds like an exercise in arithmetics. It always comes across as a lilting melody, a dhun, a song that sounds deceptively simple in spite of the heavyweight frameworks of rag and tal that it is built upon. As usual, do keep an eye on the rhythm visualization in the video to latch on to the tal cycle so that you can really enjoy the thrill of Fayaz Khan Sahab's wordplay and his rhythm work in this evocative rendering of this bandish in Rag Jaunpuri. Phulavanaki Gendana Maika Namar.
की गर्दन में कामा रे भोले मन की गर्दन में का फूल मन की गर्दन फूल मन की गर्दन में कामा और रे हरे Hare Mar meet Piharwa Phulavan ki gadan maiga Hebi gadan mai kala maro dev Nare gadan mai kala maro dev He gadan mai kama Hare gadan mai kama Hare naam na janu gaave na janu adhikasan kariyeri pukar bhulvan ki gadan mai ka he bhai mai ka gadan mai kama gadan mai kama he gadan ha gadan mai ka he mai phulavan ki gadan mai kana maru he gadan mai ka he gadan mai nama phulavan ki gadan mai kama gadan mai kama phulavan gadan mai kama phulavan ki gadan mai kama
What a different voice, what a powerful effect, and what a moving rendition that was. You might have also noticed the drama that Fayaz Khan Sahab creates with the way he modulates his voice in order to give vent to the expressive urge inside of him. But isn't it always the case that when one musician dominates the scene, like Fayaz Khan Sahab did at the time, with his extroverted, charismatic and rhythmic music, along comes another musician who scales similar heights by doing the exact opposite. We come now to the Kirana Gharana and its protagonist, Ustad Abdul Karim Khan. Abdul Karim Khan Sahab hailed from the village of Kairana in Uttar Pradesh, hence the name of his Kirana Gharana. Now, as you listen to him sing, you'll notice that he doesn't seem to be thinking about logical, disciplined complexity like in Kesar Bhai's Jaipur style, nor is he thinking about expressing through text and rhythm like Fayaz Khan Sahab's Agra style. You might find some flights of fancy in his music, similar to Krishnarao Shankar Pandit's Gwalior style, and you wouldn't be mistaken. But there is no attempt to sing all the Ashtangas and to develop the rag through the Ashtangas here. Instead, Abdul Karim Khan Sahab's entire focus seems to be on his voice. And what a voice it is. High-pitched, precise, tuneful, surila, and so quick and so flexible. Let's listen to his voice before we talk about it. Here is Ustad Abdul Karim Khan Sahab singing a Khayal in Rag Basant. Khan Sahab's voice is so mellifluous and so laden with pathos that one wants to attribute the entire hypnotizing effect of his music to his voice. Khan Sahab achieved such a high order of surilapan, of tunefulness in his time, that he could use his voice to meander across his vocal range with ease without ever disturbing the particular resonance and emotional effect his voice evokes. You might also have noticed in Khan Sahab's music the fact that the words of the text are not very intelligible. Khan Sahab softens his consonants and dissolves them into the sound he creates, so that he sounds almost like a sarangi. And in fact, Khan Sahab did come from a family of sarangi and bean players, instrumentalists, and he was an accomplished bean player himself. Scholars have argued that Khan Sahab and his followers limited the range and scope of their repertoire in order to scale incredible heights in terms of their tunefulness. Khan Sahab's ability to bring his audience to tears just through his alapi and the quality of his sur was legendary. As the old Kirana Gharanas saying goes, sur gaya to sir gaya, tal gaya to bal gaya. You miss a trifle if you miss tal, but if you miss sur, you miss all. So what we've tried to do here is to present a very broad and very quick survey of the contrasting styles of some of the early masters of the Khayal genre. Masters whose styles represented and in some cases founded the style of a gharana. This is music that grows on you gradually. So please do listen to these recordings again and again to really grasp the concepts that we've been talking about, and also do feel free to search the internet for more recordings by these musicians. And see, as you listen to these recordings, see if our descriptions of their music remain applicable. But the key thing to take away from this is that the same larger system of rag, tal and bandish can find such a diversity of expression it is able to accommodate within it the artistic urge for musical expression and innovation, whatever form the artist's vision takes. Structural complexity, lilting simplicity, charming wordplay, hypnotizing tonal precision. The Khayal comes in many, many forms. In the next session, we'll take a look at how this Gharana music morphed and shifted in the long 20th century as we listen to some of the masters of the subsequent generations.